Oh my gosh! It's time! Hey guys, and welcome back to an all-new episode of Science with Kennen. In the past, we've covered topics from why we procrastinate to why the sky is blue. If you're curious about those, you can check them out on my YouTube channel. But today, I want to start an all-new series over a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Viruses. Those itty-bitty, teeny-tiny death machines that outnumber the number of stars in the universe by a factor of more than 10 million. There's so many of them, yet so many of us know so little about them. That is until now. For the next 10 weeks, I'm going to introduce a new virus or concept in virology. That's the study of viruses. To better understand how viruses work, how they make us sick, how we can stop them, and how scientists are starting to use them to help save lives. So, if you're at all interested in the vast world of viruses, then join me in this all-new series of Viruses Made Easy. What do you say? Ready to go viral? With all this hubbub about the new coronavirus, this was as good a time as any to jump into the world of viruses. But before we can talk about any one particular virus, we first need to understand the basics. If you're anything like my friends, you may have wondered, what even is a virus, technically speaking? Or maybe, how does a virus actually make you sick? Or even just, did your mom drop you on your head as a baby? Who would even want to study those things? Okay, got a little harsher at the end, Glovey, but those are all fair questions, and hopefully ones I can answer for you by the end of today's episode. So for starters, what is a virus? Viruses are teeny tiny microscopic packages that contain either DNA or RNA programmed to infect cells and take them over in order to make more viruses. There are two key components that make up any given virus. A genetic code made up of either DNA or RNA, similar to what we have in our own cells, and a shell made up of proteins called the capsid, which protects that genetic code until the virus can enter the cell. Many viruses have an additional layer of protection called an envelope, which can help protect the virus further and facilitate its ability to get into other cells. Even though viruses have a genetic code like other living things, they technically aren't considered to be alive. One reason for this is because viruses don't eat, breathe, or grow like other living things. Instead, viruses are more like miniature machines. Think microscopic terminators programmed with one mission: to infiltrate cells, take them over, and use them to make more terminators, aka viruses.
Okay, so a virus is a small package of DNA or RNA. But if it doesn't need to eat or breathe, why does it need to take over a cell?
Great question, and this brings us to another reason viruses aren't considered to be alive. You see, a virus, unlike a cell, doesn't have all the machinery necessary to reproduce on its own. Instead, it has to break into a cell and steal that cell's reproductive machinery in order to make new viruses.
Okay, I think I get it. So viruses are just little packages of DNA or RNA that need to break into cells to borrow their machinery to reproduce. But they're not considered alive because they don't eat or breathe like living things.
That's right. Viruses are like tiny little robots that need to break into cells in order to make more copies of themselves. If they don't make any more copies, there's no more virus. Well, if the virus is just using the cells to make more viruses, then how do they make us sick? Now this is an interesting question. You see, it's typically not the virus itself that makes us feel sick, but rather our own immune system's response to the virus that causes us to feel the symptoms. When a virus infects a cell, it typically causes the cell to die as it redirects all of that cell's energy into making new viruses. During an infection, there are millions of viruses inside of your body. I know, gross, right? Those millions of viruses are going on to infect millions of cells, and as those cells die, they begin to release SOS signals known as cytokines. These cytokines activate your body's defenses, which circle around stopping the virus, killing off infected cells, and flushing everything bad out of your system. Your body will start by sending an army of immune cells, your body's warriors, off to the sites of infection. As more and more of these immune cells rush through your bloodstream to the site of infection, they can cause swelling, soreness, and redness or rashes to occur. Another trick your body uses to fight off the virus is to raise its internal temperature. By raising its temperature, which we experience as a fever, your body's able to slow down the rate of the virus while increasing the speed of your immune system. Lastly, your body can try to flush out the virus through any means possible. This includes coughing, sneezing, peeing, pooping, sweating, and vomiting. Usually, the key to overcoming any viral infection is just to keep hydrated and let your immune system do its thing, even if it's your own immune system that makes you feel so crappy. Just remember, in most cases, that feeling of crappiness is actually a sign that your immune system is doing its job to fight for you. Which is good, because there's not a lot of medications out there to fight off viral infections. Antibiotics only work against bacteria and have no effect on viruses. And the treatments that are out there for viruses mostly only help to slow down the viral infection or treat the symptoms as they occur. That's why vaccines, which work by giving your immune system a head start before an infection, are currently our best line of defense against viruses. But we'll talk more about those specifically in a future episode. So why do I study viruses? No, it wasn't because I was dropped too many times on my head as a baby. I don't think, Mom. And I don't think I'm that crazy. Maybe just a little bit. I got interested in studying viruses because I think it's fascinating how something so small and tiny and simple is able to do so much damage to a creature as complex as us. But then, the more I got into studying them, the more I learned just how vast and crazy the world of viruses are. For every living thing that's ever walked on this planet, there's probably a virus that's been able to infect. There are viruses that infect birds, viruses that infect plants, viruses that infect snails, even viruses for crabs. There are even viruses that infect only bacteria. Did you know that 8% of our own genome, the DNA inside of us, is made up of viral DNA? We're 8% virus. There are estimated to be more viruses in the world than there are stars in the sky and living creatures on this planet combined. And we're just starting to understand how viruses influence things outside of just disease. For example, scientists can now reprogram viruses and use them for good to deliver therapy and medications to patients. How crazy is that? Another way scientists are using viruses for good is to combat the epidemic of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Remember how I said there are viruses that infect specific bacteria? Well, we can use these viruses in order to attack those bacteria that are causing disease in humans that are otherwise resistant to medications like antibiotics. Talk about saving lives. There's even an emerging field of study that looks at how viral interactions influence the evolution and development of individuals and entire ecosystems. I find the ability of viruses to both cause disease and be used to cure them terrifying and yet incredible, which is why I chose to study them and why I want to share them with you. So, if you're not completely creeped out by now, or even if you are, I want to encourage you to follow along for the rest of this series of Viruses Made Easy, where we're going to be talking about viruses, vaccines, and phage therapies. So until next time, friends, as always, stay classy and keep curious.